everybody. On today's episode of Match Unmuted, I talk about my Montezuma's revenge in Mexico, among a whole lot of other things I bitch about. People in this country.
Would you say that that's the straight poop?
It wasn't straight. There was nothing straight about that poop. I'm telling you. Anyway, today's episode of Match Unmuted. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Madge Unmuted. I am your hostess, Madgemadigan, and welcome. And with me today, as always, is Fitz.
Hi.
Say hi, Fitz.
Hi, Fitz.
We couldn't have Chris again with us today because his horse died. Oh. Anyway, starting off on a happy note.
Well, it can only get better from here.
Well, there you go. Well, I don't know, though, because I just plan to bitch a lot today. So,
Perfect. So, I'm ready. Let's bitch fest.
I know. I was telling you earlier that how sometimes I'll do my notes for a show, and then I end that, and then I do whatever, and I get ready, and then I come here to sit down, and I'm like, I don't feel like talking about that anymore. It's pretty much what happened to me today, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. What I want to talk about, I don't want to belabor the Bad Bunny thing and something adjacent to it. So I wanted to talk about, I'm sure we've all seen, here it is when we're recording this Wednesday and people are still going on about it. And I don't want to go on about that. I want to go on about like Americans. Okay, there's a couple things I want to talk about that. One thing is, and I don't know if you find this, but a lot of times people who don't go out of their like town, neighborhood, whatever.
The bubble.
Right. Their bubble don't understand that not everything everywhere is like that.
Yeah.
And I know some people that are even like, I'll tell them, that what I've been, reading my friends say online or, people's opinions on things. But then he's like, well, no, most people aren't like that. I'm like, he's like, well, because I'm not like that. And I'm like, well, that means jack shit. You know what I mean? Anyway, like there's a lot of people in small towns and, and I'll find it. There's people that haven't been out of this place since they were born, but they have very little experience. It's one thing to like go visit a place, go on vacation, but it's another place to have gone somewhere and done business, lived somewhere else and had a job,
right?
Really got entrenched in a place. Yeah, right. Even if you're if you're somebody, excuse me, like I know people that their job takes them all over and they have to meet with a lot of different places. So they experience, I'm just using this as an example. They vote according to what they see. Okay. This is evident a lot in stereotypes. Like there's a lot of people around here that are very anti-immigrant, and what's funny though is like there's like no immigrants here other than Puerto Rican people there's been Puerto Ricans in this community since,
and they're not
post
immigrants,
World
they're
War
actually
II.
citizens.
And I was just going to say, they're citizens, and they've been here for decades since the big migration from Puerto Rico because the U.S. needed bodies to work after the big boom, the baby boom, the everything, economic boom. And so the U.S. Government was like, hey, Puerto Rico, you're all citizens already, so no problem, come on over, and you've got jobs aplenty over here. Well, then they get over here and everybody treats them like shit, so which happens often. But anyway, there aren't any here, and people will just pay attention to...
You mean specifically in where you live, right?
Yes.
In Dunkirk area.
What I was going to say is like, there's some people here that had up signs for the election that were like, no immigrants, build the wall now, and all that stuff. And I'm like, how does this... You've been watching too much TV and reading too much social media, because what? There's nobody around here affecting your life. You know what I mean?
Also, how long have they been in the country? Isn't it chances are that their parents were also immigrants or their grandparents?
That was the other thing I was going to say on what I was talking about before, is that my friends' parents, there were plenty of them. Their parents or their grandparents, there were a shit ton from Poland.
But those don't count.
Right. I mean, I don't see them. I live an hour from the Canadian border. I don't see anybody camping out up there. Anyway, getting off that topic. So the one thing I was just going to say about like the Bad Bunny is that they were talking about it's all in Spanish. It's not one word of English. And it's like, well, that's total bullshit, because Lady Gaga was in the middle singing in English and actually throughout Bad Bunny said a few English words. But also, I don't understand. Somebody please tell me. I'll have an open dialogue. Why are you so bent out of shape about people not speaking English? Because every other country in the world, people speak multiple languages. Granted, some have, their countries are much smaller and they have their borders, are border other countries that it's really kind of makes sense to know. But anyway, but also, if you think about it, we have such a thing about Spanish. Did you know? Let me just show you right here that like half of our country was Mexican territory before we took it over.
Till we stole it.
just before, till we stole it just before the Civil War. So it hadn't been that long. Our country was Mexico. And then other parts of it were Spain. There's a whole, I have everything the Spanish territory was Florida, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Wyoming, under Spanish control. Then following independence from Spain, Mexico took over California, Texas, and then all of those other said things. Then half of, the other part of us were part of France. Have you ever heard of the Louisiana Purchase? All along the Mississippi River, starting in, up, North Dakota and all that. I have it written down. What are some of these states, in part or whole, mostly just in part, were part of the Louisiana Purchase. Arkansas, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, and Wyoming. We're all part of France. And that was just, the beginning of the 1800s. So we were all part of somewhere else. The only people that were Native Americans were Native Americans. And when
we know
the white man
got to them.
Yeah, we know what happened to them. And when they were made to assimilate, they had everything taken away from them. They had their languages taken away, their dress, their everything taken away. And so, and even, I don't want to get preachy, but like, just put it into fucking perspective, people. The other thing is, even the, white man, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant that you all think, is the core of our existence, the Mayflower, people that came over on the Mayflower, the founding fathers, all of that.
Bucklehead Puritan.
Yes. But even with that, they came from someplace else. They came from England, which
right,
they
speak
used
English in England,
but not entirely exactly the same.
But this isn't this
but
argument
you're right.
About assimilation has been going on for a long time. I know. Even in New York City, when the great immigration was coming in the early 1900s. And all those people that were coming from Italy and stuff, a lot of the native born. I mean, remember the movie Gangs of New York?
Yes.
That was a big, like, even the Native Americans, who are not really Native Americans, but the people that lived here, were born here, were complaining about all the Irish.
Exactly.
And saying, and why don't they just assimilate instead of bringing their terrible customs here? And they were Catholic, so people didn't like the fact that they were Catholic.
Because all I want to do is have sex and procreate.
Damn right.
You know what? Because shit rolls downhill. Anybody who feels bad about themselves, feels insecure, feels like they were dealt a bad lot in life or a crappy hand, they want to take it out on the next guy down. So they create, this is literally what it is, they create a boogeyman below them. But going back to, I was thinking about this assimilation thing and how people are always like, you're in America now, speak English and do this and do that. But then I've also noticed that when I've said, it's happened to me on the internet plenty of times when I'll make a joke or a comment about being Irish. Well, I mean it because I'm of Irish ancestry, but that's how people in the U.S. say it. They don't say, I am of Irish descent, or you just say, I'm Italian, I'm Irish, whatever. Because when we were growing up, like our grandparents, that was the big, at the beginning of our grandparents at the beginning of the 1900s or end of the 1800s, it was the big migration. And so you were known by your ethnic group, because that's how neighborhoods were usually split. I mean, and people came over and they helped their friends, and they came over and settled in a place because they knew somebody from back home. And then other people, learned, they spoke the language and they understood the customs and yada, yada, yada. I don't understand what is wrong with that. But anyway, when I've said, that I'm Irish, people will be like, oh, that's fucking disgusting. You're not Irish, And I think it's mostly people from Ireland that say that, which, I get it. But also they don't understand that that's for generations, people, how in the U.S. identify themselves. Now, all of a sudden, there's this big group that's like, I'm an American. I just want to be known as American. Well, that's kind of hard to do unless you've been here for since the Mayflower. But still, the thing about, they say that I'm Irish because we've had this conversation before. My father's grandparents were from Ireland. So my father was raised by Irish people. He spent most of his time around his grandparents, and all of their brothers and sisters, all their aunts and uncles, all the extended family, they were from Ireland. So they spoke with brogues, as they used to say. They played Irish music. They had Irish customs. They drank Irish whiskey, and they ate Irish food. They did all that so that every holiday you had those same customs, and they're passed down because that's what they knew. Like when I went to Ireland on vacation, oh my God, I would find myself like breaking out in tears because I'm like, holy crap, that's where that came from. We did that every time at Christmas, and they're doing it here. So now I felt like seen, as the kids say. So here's the thing. I'm trying to get people to explain when, everybody got so bent out of shape, because it brought me such joy to see the Bad Bunny, excuse me, whole production. One, the production value was just ridiculously great. I mean, how they pulled that off, all the sets, all the video. I mean, my God, it takes us a half an hour to set up a one-shot fucking press and play shit here. So anyway, he's going through, I've been watching these reaction videos on TikTok of, it was people from Puerto Rico, of Puerto Rican descent, whatever the proper way. So around here, people say we're Puerto Rican. So Puerto Rican people setting up a camera, and it's fixed on them watching the Bad Bunny thing, halftime show. And it's the pure joy as he walked through that set and would come upon certain things, the dress, the hats, the piragua, the shaved ice, the men playing dominoes, the bodega, the Puerto Rican Social Club.
There was so much culture in that show.
Exactly.
So
and every
much
time,
culture.
Exactly. And anytime it came upon something, the people would be like, ah! The women or everybody would screech and be like, oh my God. And they would say, it's like they're doing it. They were recognizing their culture and felt seen and reminiscing about the homeland and acknowledging all the things. I mean, you got a whole Puerto Rican microcosm in New York City, because when they did the big migration of Puerto Rico after World War II, they all ended up in New York City. And I don't remember if that was on purpose or by accident, but that was kind of the entry point. And people just, oh, that's where Spanish Harlem came from. That's how Spanish Harlem, because it's all Puerto Rican, but they still put them up in that part of town. So anyway, so they're like so excited to see all these things. And I even got excited because I grew up with a lot of Puerto Rican kids, because there's a lot of grape vineyards here, because Welch's used to have their headquarters here. So there were a lot of Puerto Rican people were migrant workers. And so they would come, seasonal, tie the grapes and pick the grapes and all that. So I would notice things like, oh my God, I remembered that custom. I remember hearing that music in the summertime from my friends. And we had a Puerto Rican social club here in town. We had a bar called Tito's. We had another, these were all the Puerto Rican people in town. Those were their spots. Anyway, here's my analogy. So you want everybody to come here and just chuck their culture out the window. Fucking forget it. Your what was that? What was one of the books? I don't know. It was Fahrenheit 451 or 1984 or whatever. Oh no. Men in Black, where they just like erase their memory.
Yeah, the light, the flash.
Yeah. So they want to just erase all their memories, erase their language. You got to be, white American. So it's like, say you're born and raised. Oh, you can. Fitz can totally relate. Okay, imagine you're born and raised in New York City. I know you're not Long Island, but still, you're born and raised in New York City. You, maybe you're in Hell's Kitchen or way uptown or in the Bronx, Brooklyn, whatever. So you get there, and then all of a sudden you got to move to Florida. So you move to Florida, you get there, you still want to root for your Yankees, wear your Yankees clothes. You still got your accent. You still call a corner store a bodega. You still, you're talk about all these things, but no, they want you. You're in Florida now, pal. You got to wear Panthers gear. You got to stop talking with that accent. We don't want that shit around here. You can't use your slang anymore. This is a corner store. This is a fucking 7-Eleven. It's not a fucking bodega. All that stuff. It's like,
yeah,
it's the same thing.
Try that in Miami. When I worked in Miami, if you just stopping at the gas station, it's quite possible that the person behind the counter doesn't speak English.
Exactly.
And most of the people there don't speak English. And I know a lot of people that really had a problem with that. And honestly, for my own self, I kind of had a problem with it from time to time, because I was like, I can't communicate to these people, and I'm in this country, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But I'm in a neighborhood that is primarily Cuban, and
right.
because they're all in that's their neighborhood, and they're business owners, and these are people who remembered how difficult it was to get a job, and so they give this guy a job. He might not be able to speak English, but he needs a job so he can feed his family, and that
makes him less than you.
Right. And the neighborhood grows, and now you've got a whole community of people who may not have learned the language, and many of them don't need to. And I can understand a section of the populace that believes that if you move to this country, you should assimilate in some way. And there's some value to that opinion. It's just how they go about expressing that opinion is where the problem is.
Yes, that's it exactly, because I noticed, I did some investigating a few months ago, and it started when our friend Amy had moved to France. She has moved to the south of France. She's, had been living in California for the last several years, but she's born and raised in Rochester. She just moved to France, and she wanted to get citizenship right away because it would give her, she could get a better apartment. She could get a better, all these things that you didn't realize were kind of tied into the government. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know, healthcare, a job, just, like anybody here, you can, if you have a certain type of visa or whatever, some you can work, some you can't work, yada, yada. So she was telling me how she had to prepare before she was moving there, how she had to prepare because you have to, and I thought, I didn't think it was easy, but I'm like, give these people a break. Well, there's a lot of places that it's much harder to become a citizen. However, they have written down an exact path. It's very clearly laid out. Here, there's like 18 different things, and you don't know what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. And sometimes they let it slide, sometimes they don't. And then it's just like whoever has the most money and gets a lawyer, then you can finally get your citizenship. But anyway, Amy was telling me she had to take a test in the French language. You have to take a proficiency that a basic conversation thing. And the same with John and I were we've been to Niagara on the Lake a few times, and we're like, this is gorgeous, and we were talking about, we've known people that have owned property in Canada, over the years that were U.S. citizens. And we're like, geez, I wonder how that works. So I looked it up, like, how can you own property in another country? And, or what are the rules to becoming I keep wanting to say French Canadian, a Canadian citizen. And they have things equally as stringent. You have to take a language test to show you that you're proficient. And I don't know that we have that anywhere, just to, enter. But
we have the citizen, the naturalization test that you have to take. You got to go to the courses, right. and that kind of stuff. And you have to learn
fucking things like, you have to learn things like who was the third president. What the fuck
guarantee
does that?
You that a lot of red-blooded Americans couldn't pass that naturalization citizenship test. Guaranteed.
Amen. I say to you, amen. Exactly. So, I know you Catholics will understand that one. So they have all these but it's laid out, but then they give you grace that when you get to that country, you're not going to be fluent the minute you walk in the door, but at least you're trying. And I think they have that here, but it's like everybody knows, at least, hello, goodbye, please, thank you. I mean, people, it makes it really hard if you don't know the language at all yet, and they want you to take orders at a restaurant. I've had that happen, and it was really hard. And it's not the fact that you don't understand English. It's the fact that, like you said, oh my God, I'm trying to communicate here. I just want to order a hamburger without cheese. And I don't understand, there's that. That's one other thing. But this whole, I don't want to hear, you see all the time these viral videos of people, they're recording some Karen that is talking to some bystander. She overheard speaking Spanish. She's like, you're in this country, you speak Spanish. And sometimes the person will go I'm speaking to my mother back in Puerto Rico or in Mexico, and all she knows is Spanish, so I'm speaking Spanish to her, so go fuck yourself. I'm
really fucking, whose business is it of yours? What language I'm speaking in my phone?
Exactly. But that's the kind of shit, and it's just people that are so goddamn insecure, because I know people that refuse to go to any salon that's owned by an Asian person,
which so what do they got? One salon you can go to then?
Yeah, exactly. And did you know, I'll tell you something. There is a whole backstory as to why there's a lot of Asian owned nail salons. It's because it's a long story, but back in the 80s, there was a lady and everybody was coming to this country and they needed jobs. And she's like, oh, nail salon. You don't need, she was an Asian woman. She was an older lady and she kept sponsoring all these people coming in. She'd have them work in their things and they just realized that, oh, it's an easier thing. And then she made it into a racket. Like, okay, I'll sponsor you, go work in the nail salon. Okay. And now I'm going to open up another one. Oh,
like
okay.
Indentured servitude?
This guy... Not that
like
terrible,
a path to citizenship was to work in this salon.
Yeah, but she was making money. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right. So she was sort of exploiting them.
Yes, a little bit, but they were getting a job. Then eventually, a lot of them, they got their job and then they started having to do the licensing thing. And then they would make enough money eventually, work their ass off. And then they bought a salon, for franchised it. So it just became this thing. Look it up. It's fascinating. But anyway, I know people that won't go to this because they think that the women or the men, whatever, the people there, the employees are talking about them.
But they are. Everybody knows they are. And you know what? Good.
Yes, but also sometimes, who cares? Get over yourself. Everybody talks about you in English too. I hate to tell you that.
And you can't understand them either.
Exactly. We're all talking about you too, so maybe it's you. So anyway, the hell.
Do your own nails. Do your own fucking nails.
Like I do. Except I did get my toes done before I went to Mexico, and that was really nice. And so speaking of people not knowing the language or whatever. So John and I made a real point of it that when we went to Mexico a couple weeks ago, but it's also a personal challenge. Like I love learning other languages and it's a resort. Everybody there is like an American or Canadian and, no brown people, and everybody's there, except you have the occasional people that came down from California, because this is Cabo, so it's the West Coast. And, there's a few people came down from Cabo, and they were Spanish speaking already. So they were of Spanish descent, or, Mexican, whatever, any Spanish speaking. So, but like, they really make these people, the employees of the resort, really learn English and be proficient. And it's like, now wait a minute, I'm in your country, I'm going to make this a little easier on you and show you that I appreciate you, because otherwise you're just like an indentured servant of Americans. And so John and I tried, and it was so funny because sometimes we would say hablo español un poquito, or just some other things, basic numbers or whatever, and then they'd be like, yes, habla español, blah, blah, and they'd start saying something, and he'd be like, oh, no, un poquito, and they're like, oh, okay, and he's like, but I like to learn. We would both say that. And so what the fuck is the problem making someone else's life easier? And the smiles on their faces when you spoke Spanish to them was just like, because they're really,
it's a sign of respect that you care enough to try to communicate to them in the language of their birth or whatever,
But also, we had befriended some of the employees there, mostly the, in the bar and restaurant, because that's where you encounter them the most. And they're like kind of afraid that if they don't speak English correctly, because people have gotten mad at them, the tourists have gotten mad at them, and they're like, we don't want to make anybody mad, and and then also we won't get a good tip, and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, look, you don't have to worry about us, we're in your country. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
The problem is that there's assholes are assholes no matter what country they are.
You are correct.
When I traveled in Europe back in the late 90s, when I worked for that cruise line, I tried because I went to a lot of different countries, and I tried to learn some of the basic phrases and some of the basic things so that I could at least, show them that I'm making the attempt. And I remember one of my favorite things to do when you go to a different country is to eat in a restaurant that is very local, that is very much not a chain, that has local food.
Absolutely. I want to eat what the locals, yeah.
We were in
better food.
In Barcelona, and we had a driver because he was taking us around and shooting, and the guy that was on my team, was my assistant, he was complaining because he wanted to go to Pizza Hut, and I was like, I'm not going to Pizza Hut. We're in Barcelona. I asked our driver, I said, where would you go to lunch? Take us there. I didn't know what the hell I was eating. I didn't know how to pronounce it, but damn, it was good food.
Right. I mean? And I think you told me this a couple years ago, and I've never forgotten it. And John tells the same sort of stories all the time too, because he flies for a living, and he always has a first officer with him. He's a captain. And if they go, even if it's within the United States, usually he flies to the Caribbean, Mexico a lot. And he'll get some guy, or occasionally a woman, it's mostly just a guy, anyway, traveling with him that's like, I'm gonna go over to Applebee's, and he's like, we're in fucking Warsaw, Poland, and you want to go to Applebee's. He's like, I'm going over here and getting pierogies and everything. So John complains about that all the time because he's a stickler of, that's when he and I travel. The first thing we do is we either ask if we're taking an Uber, either the Uber driver or like the front desk person. We ask if they're a local, and they say yes. And we're like, where do the locals eat and drink here? Where should we go? Because we don't, we go to a resort. We want to go off the resort, unless, of course, it's a sketchy, place where they're like, you might not want to leave the, the resort. Like there's certain parts of like the Dominican Republic or even Jamaica.
Some of the best meals I've ever
there's places
had
here I wouldn't go.
Are places like when I worked for the cruise line, we would get down. There was one place in St. Martin that we would go to that all of the Indian guys that worked on board, when they get off on port, they would go to this one Indian restaurant. And so we tagged along with them because we're like, well, if they're going there, that's got to be some good food, Yeah. We went there. It was like some of the best food I've ever had. And you're just like, I don't know, you're missing out if you're always sticking. I understand wanting to feel comfortable, and like sometimes there's the debate on whether or not you can trust, like, because the health codes in different countries might not be up to snuff or whatever.
Oh,
and you're gonna get a parasite in your head or something.
Speaking of that, I got bad Montezuma's revenge. Like the second or third day we were in Mexico.
That's what they call the sports.
Oh, it was violently coming out of
everywhere.
I'll never forget when it was
I don't mean
first.
To laugh. It's horrible.
No, but you can't not, because I was so careful, because every time I've been to Mexico, and I'm like, sometimes it's the luck of the draw, because I think like, I remember at one point, like I not thinking, like took a mouthful of tap water to take a pill in the morning, and then I was like, oh right, I shouldn't do that. But then I'm like, it's like a freaking sip. Who cares?
That's all you need.
Right. But then like a couple other times, John and I, they had all these outdoor restaurants, and they tell you, they just don't have the same stringent food safety things that we do. I got it. Like a lot of those places, like they have, food vendors, even the food stands at the resort, like the food is just sitting out, like the cut up vegetables, like the avocados and shit,
flies crawling all over them and stuff like that.
Exactly. Like I'll know the first night we were there, they had this outdoor it was the only place that was open because we got there so late because we had a disaster of travel, anyway, so it was this like they were cooking in this outdoor open kitchen, which they have, and they just made like tacos. I had some tacos, And as I'm leaving, I see this kitty cat walk down this sidewalk. From all of a sudden, the cat leaps up on the counter and leaps down into the kitchen.
You're like, great, that's fantastic.
But they were. I saw. That wasn't. I saw more than one stray cat. You
probably ate more than one too.
We even saw. Cat tacos. I mean, we saw that in Florida. Those places. It's like, how are you gonna get? I don't know. Anyway, so I remember when it hit me. We were sitting out. We were near the beach in a outdoor cabana, and we just wanted a snack. And the thing I ordered was chips and guac, and he ordered like some little taco tostada type of thing. I don't know, like within an hour after eating that guacamole, my mouth starts salivating, like nobody's business. I don't ever have
when
that.
You know
and
there's something terribly wrong when you're like,
uncontrollably salivating.
And,
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, my tummy started to rumble, and I started to get cramps, in my intestines. And I'm like, oh my God, something's right now. At first, it was very minor. Like sometimes I'll get a pain if I eat too many like berries. I have this sensitivity to it. But then I'm like, oh no, I don't start salivating. I'm like, I gotta throw up. So yeah, anyway, eventually went back to the room, and it lasted for a couple of days of just,
terrible.
Yeah, so I was afraid of everything.
Norovirus. It's the norovirus. Yeah. It's very similar to that. And it's caused from people not washing their hands after they use the pooper.
Exactly. And but what's kind of sucked is I was afraid of everything after that. It's like, because even like, oh shit. And I was drinking mixed drinks, and he's like, not everybody has purified ice. And I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to drink wine the rest of the time, because I mean, it made sense. Some people are like, yeah, I wouldn't drink ice cubes because what are they going to do? Run, Fuji water through the ice cube machine. Some of the higher end places do have a purifier, but whatever. And then I'm watching, I'm like, oh, I don't know if it was this or that. I don't know if it was the guac. And I'm reading all the stuff. They're like, fresh fruits and vegetables and seafood. I'm like, fuck, what the fuck? I'm just going to eat fucking rice the entire time I'm here. And so I was kind of afraid.
I got lucky. I must have gotten lucky because I did a lot of trips to the West Coast, the Riviera, the Mexican Riviera, and like Cabo and over that way. Yeah. And we did a bunch of tours and things that really went out into the sticks. And they would have, at the end of the tour, there'd be a guy out there just making tortillas and making like quesadillas and stuff. And that's what you ate, that's just a whole bunch of them. And I was like, and they were so good. Yeah. And it was like fresh guacamole and whatever salsa and stuff. And I was like, man, I got lucky. Because that could have really gone south.
The last time we were there, I didn't have anything happen to me. And this was a higher end resort than the other one. And we go stay at those because John has a timeshare that he originally got in Tahoe, and he got it over 30 years ago, and it's paid off, so you just can use a little, it's a little charge that you can go look at any other reciprocal places and book so that's how we take all our vacations. It's, pretty much this little fee that's less, a couple $100 or something. And so anyway, that is the one drawback of in a place like that, like eating local. Like sometimes it's a crapshoot, but that's sucks. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna get off that thing. I was gonna talk about something else today, but we're kind of running out of time. But I want everybody.
Yeah, I got subs waiting. Wrap it up, Toots.
Oh, jeez. Okay, sorry about that. I want to do this. Series, or maybe I don't know. Because sometimes I'm like, should I like pare down what this podcast is going to be about? And I'm like, I don't know. Fuck it. I just feel like rambling. It's my podcast, so whatever. So
and you can cry if you want to.
Exactly, but sometimes I've thought about, and other people that live here have like suggested it to me about doing, like making it about this town sometimes, or at least a segment, because this is a quirky little town. I don't want to like badmouth it or whatever, but there's just like shit that goes on here that, because even people that grew up here and they move away and they're like, no one has ever even heard of this. It's something we do here. And they're like, I go somewhere, no one's ever heard of this. And then, like, why does everybody in your town have a nickname? It's like, I don't know, just because they do. And then it's like the long history we have of people pilfering from town hall, you know, is just
like toilet paper.
No, like cash money.
Oh, like embezzling.
Yeah, no, just
gotcha.
I mean, like generations.
Yeah.
But then again, I think that happens in a lot of governments. But anyway, you know, we've had several high profile people been arrested over the years, and we just had another one recently, you know, for embezzling and misappropriating funds.
The city of Miami for years and years it was so much corruption there that there was never a mayor that didn't end up in jail in some way.
Right, exactly. Yes, that and Providence, Rhode Island was another one, I think.
That was a big. Providence had a big mob, had a lot of mob activity,
yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, if anybody ever wants to see some, and I have a friend, but like I don't want to use names, and I have a friend here that and it's a guy I went to high school with. He's my age and he knows everything. He'll tell you. He's like, oh yeah, that's their second marriage. Yeah, he started banging her before he was done with the last one, and now they've been there. Oh yeah, they were all over town. And I'm like, really? I'm like, tell me. And he'll tell me the story, you know. But he would never. I could never use his name, and I never, you know. But it's hilarious, and I would never say those stories really.
Well, maybe. Just use different names.
Well.
That could be fun.
But you know, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of that. That's a thing where you go around everywhere. You know where everybody lives because you do that route. You know what everybody's doing. You see whose cars are at whose, you know, whatever. It's like if you're a fireman, policeman, mail carrier, meter reader, whatever. You know all the shit
barbers
that's going on.
You know the nail salon and the beauty salon. They know everything that's going on because that's where all the gossip is.
Absolutely, like. Somebody that had cut my hair a while back knew some stuff at a place that I frequent before I did. I'm like, I go there every day. I didn't hear about this. And she's like, oh, didn't hear it from me. I'm like, damn. So anyway, we'll see if I can somehow put together a gossip show. Because people also in Fairhaven have told me I needed to talk about that. Just change the names. And I'm just so afraid of like, the story's pretty obvious. If you're somebody in town, you know who I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So we'll figure out how to do that. You know, it'd be like Dragnet. The names and occupations have changed to save the innocent or whatever the fuck it is. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe while you're here. Tell your friends, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Fitz, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
And until next week, I hope we see you on next week's episode of Madge Unmuted. Bye.